Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Legendarium podcast. Today, we are talking Akalabeth. This is the downfall of Numenor from the Silmarillion. This is episode 10 of 11. It's been one heck of a hot minute. I am your host, Craig Hanks. Over there, Ryan Bruckman joins me once again. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Doing good.
Do you want me to make a jokey insult for you about, falling into the chasm? I feel like there's a butt crack joke or something in there. It's
Dumbadane. I don't know.
It took the actions of Eru himself to pour enough ocean water into his crack to cleanse it of all evil.
I want to crush you with rocks like Eru did to the army. So
I got nothing. No, it's so we are Kyle-less today. So apologies to all the Kyle
I wasn't
fans.
sure if you were poxing him or what you were going for there.
Yeah, apologies to all the Kyle fans out there. We are Kyle-less, but it has been so long. I think it's been like 2.5 months now since we did a Silmarillion episode that Ryan and I were just like, here's the time we're going to do it. Kyle, we hope you can make it. And he couldn't make it. So sorry. But we're forging on. Like I said, today, Akalabeth. Before we get to that, thelegendarium.com for past episodes, for the link to Patreon, for the link to Discord. I am in talks with the existing patrons, as represented by Little Red Book, about stuff that we can do for Patreon. That would be Patreon exclusives. And so if you'd like to make your voice heard, you can become a patron for as little as $1 an episode. That's $3 to $4 a month. That's it. And then you can get access to the patron channel on Discord, and you too can yell at me, and I will actually take it. I won't take it from the general channel, Ryan. I'm just...
Oh, I know. I know how much I've had to pay to throw crap at you. So,
no. Anyway, so yeah, Patreon, things may be coming down the pike. Watch for that. Regardless, we'd love your support, and thank you for those who do give it. Really appreciate it. All right, Ryan. June 2016, we recorded an episode on Akalabeth. Do you recall this?
I recall being there, and as I was reviewing Akalabeth in my Kindle, I found notes from the prior time. I was like, oh yeah, we have talked about this. I do remember. Yeah, these notes don't make sense. Okay.
I have not gone back and listened to the episode. It's episode 95, if anybody cares to go back in the archive and check it out. I haven't gone back and listened to it, and I have no memory of what we talked about, because frankly, that was 6 years ago. So no, I'm not going to remember that. But anyway, it is there if people want to go check it out. And if you do, I apologize if there are any retreads of topics, but we're just going to, the reason I didn't go back, Ryan, I was thinking about it, but the reason I didn't go back and listen to that one is because I thought, you know what, let's just keep it fresh with this reread. I didn't go back with any of the other episodes, whether it was Baron and Luthien or Turin Turam, but we did those before as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't go back on this one, but others can. So Ryan, how did it go for you this time 6 years later?
I think this time around was able to enjoy it more. The prior times we've kind of pieced out the individual stories that you thought would be most interesting and the most fun to talk about. This time, since we've been going from front to back, cover to cover, actually finishing the whole thing, there's a little more context for a lot of things. We've mentioned this in other pieces, but this was interesting to me because this comes after we finished the Quenta Silmarillion, and I'm sitting like, okay, so are we starting a new story? Are we starting this? But no, like there are the characters, a lot of things that are still carrying over. We're just in a new section here, and I really enjoyed it this time. I don't remember if I enjoyed it the first time or not.
It's been that long, folks.
But I did enjoy this. This is probably my favorite story sequence that we go over, because I love the Numenorians. I love the whole story and the culture of these men who are granted the gift of longer life. They're taller. They kind
superior powers of intelligence and physicality and all that, right?
And what their story is, and how even they, at a certain point, they fall to the dark with when Sauron is allowed in and does his little mind magic on everybody.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's amazing. Yeah, how this story is a bit of a Greek tragedy or something in what's the opposite of miniature?
Epic?
Maxiture. Sure. No, it's there are no protagonists. I mean, eventually we kind of zoom in on Elendil and Isildur and Anarion, and we kind of zoom in on them for a few paragraphs, as they lead the faithful and escape the fall of Numenor. But really, it's a few paragraphs out of 25 pages of story. But it's like the main character is Numenorian society, and it's the story of people who are, on a power scale. They end up going Super Saiyan. If Super Saiyan is the dial going to 11, then that's at the end of the story. But they start at like a 9, right? They are favored of the gods and given this wonderful land. And yes, we are going to just kind of recap this as we go. Just prepare for that. Anyway, they're given all this stuff and eventually work their way up toward that kind of Super Saiyan status. But
they're blocked.
Fall right.
Yeah.
And then they fall spectacularly. And that's the end of the freaking story. So interesting how this could track a story that had a protagonist. Does that make sense? That Numenor is the protagonist.
Yeah, it would not be difficult to insert other stories inside of this story, kind of viewing the fall, because now you have the big picture thing, which is what I feel like most of the Silmarillion has been, giving bigger picture things. But you could easily write the story of a Numenorian and their journey until the fall of the Numenor. The whole thing. You could easily do it. Yeah,
it's. Do you mind if we acknowledge the existence of the upcoming Amazon show?
I'm fine with that. Okay. I'm perfectly okay with that.
Just only to say, right now I don't really have any interest in passing prejudgment on the show. My only point is, what a canvas for a show like that. And of course, they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. They have to stay with the appendices to the Lord of the Rings or whatever, quote unquote. But you can bet your bottom dollar they've got this chapter memorized, right?
Oh yeah, you would hope so.
Right. And what a canvas to work with, where you have such a society with such seemingly interesting characters that you only get to view from 30,000 feet away.
Yeah.
And so they can pick and choose and say, hey, we really want to zoom in on this episode. I would be shocked if the show didn't have the scene when Isildur breaks in and steals a fruit from the white tree, the dying white tree, and creates whatever. He grows this new scion of Telperion. Wonderful, wonderful scene. And it happens in one paragraph. And, there's such a rich bit of possibility there to write an entire sequence, a whole episode or a whole 6-episode arc around that. It'll probably, be a flashback or something, but
some smaller portion. Well, and at bare minimum, you have to acknowledge where Sauron is if he's going to be a character in your piece, and that he does spend time in this being part of the Numenorian society there. So you can't just blatantly ignore it. Like, if you can't write about it, you can't ignore it either.
Right.
So,
yeah, and it's not just those who are in it, like Sauron and Isildur. I guess part of my point with all this is I don't mind that people are complaining, they're just going to make up characters out of whole cloth.
There's plenty there for you to do.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind that. That's the joy of a chapter like this, is it gives you that kind of historical overview and then leaves your imagination to run wild. When it says that there were divisions among the people and the king's men, or whatever they called them, versus the faithful.
Yeah.
There's a whole 5-season series in there about how that rift got caused, and what drove these people apart, and who was on which side of which faction, and who their counselors were, and who was mucking the stables that this king was riding out of, whatever. There's a lot there that's just under the surface, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I feel like I'm bloviating now for a while.
Well, it's an exciting opportunity coming up here, and it is connected. So
yeah. So let's go back to the beginning of this chapter and talk about, like I said, we're going to kind of recap as we go. I mentioned already that the people of Numenor are the favorite of the gods, right? So these are the folks who helped during the war, the Great War with Morgoth in the Quenta Silmarillion, the three houses of the Edain, the men in those chapters. So they were gifted the island of Numenor. Mm-hmm. And there's a great sequence that is so wonderfully kind of fairy tale or mythological where the gods raise up the islands and, this god made the land and then this god or goddess made it flower and grow and,
mm-hmm.
whatever. And then the seas were stilled and the winds blew just right. So all they had to do was like step onto these ships and it just took them across this smooth as glass water all the way to their paradisiacal island. Like wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was one little bit that I wanted to point out right from the beginning, a line that I highlighted this time through. Let's see. It is said by the Eldar that men came into the world in the time of the shadow of Morgoth. Okay, so we
mm-hmm.
heard about all this. They fell swiftly under his dominion, for he sent his emissaries among them, and they listened to his evil and cunning words, and they worshipped the darkness and yet feared it. But there were some that turned from evil and left the lands of their kindred and wandered ever westward. Okay, so now we're setting the table for this chapter. But I highlighted that. They fell swiftly under his dominion, but there were some that turned from evil. And it's almost like we're getting a view of the human race that's kind of the opposite of what we were shown of the elves at the beginning of the Silmarillion, where it was like the elves were, they were uncorrupted and they had to be captured and tortured and mutilated and turned, they had to be forcibly turned away from, their innate goodness,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas humans are the opposite. They fell swiftly under the shadow. Morgoth took them in very easily, and it was only through effort and a few unique and wise individuals that some of them turned away from the shadow. And now we're getting into some real, Tolkien is Catholic and that's coming through stuff here, right? Where man has fallen, and not just fallen, but fallen and depraved and evil. And it's only with great effort that man can turn his heart toward God, that sort of thing. Right. So anyway, it's just it's a little line in there, but I'd never noticed it before and it kind of jumped out to me on this one. So, Ryan, do you have any notes from kind of this beginning of the story?
Yeah, actually, there's it's in a very similar vein. It's just a little bit further on in. It talks right here. I'll read this here. Along those lines, there's something unique about this era, though, is the fact that Morgoth has been removed from
the circles of the world.
In prior stories, like, he still has a heavy influence by actually existing there. But if you actually read a little further on, it says, but Manwë put forth Morgoth and shut him beyond the world in the void that is without, and he cannot himself return again into the world, present and visible, while the lords of the west are still enthroned. Yet the seeds that he planted still grew and sprouted, bearing evil fruit if any would tend them.
Yeah, I highlighted that too.
It's gorgeous writing there, fantastic, but it sets this idea now that the evil that is done here it's less of an evil force that is pushing on people and more of, I've left these seeds and the nature of you will go in and mess with them and start actually making it happen.
Right.
It speaks to how powerful Morgoth is, how powerful Sauron will become as well as he continues to work on
fill that role
as the new Dark Lord. But yeah, I just think it's interesting as we
I want a GIF. I want an audio version of a GIF or a little clip of Will Smith and Men in Black saying "Old and busted, new hotness." Sorry. Okay, go on.
That broke my train of thought.
Yeah, well, that was not quite the intention, but not that sorry.
It's just mainly the whole section here talking. I feel like it puts more weight on the choices made by the people who live in the era when there isn't someone who's actively working the way that Morgoth was. Sauron is now stepping into that role and doing that, so it's not entirely gone. It's not like we've gotten rid of the bad guy, and so now it's just the evil that's in the men's hearts. But it's still a little bit more of a reality here than it was, I feel, even prior.
Yeah, there's a bit about even with Morgoth gone, that men in the eastern parts of the world, in Middle Earth, basically, they still had to deal with his works. So the Balrogs and the dragons and the orcs and the whatever else, all these the fell beasts and all this, and not just that. I mean, we can talk about what Morgoth did, back in the creation of the world, where he says, "Oh, you like water, huh? Watch me freeze it." And of course we know what Iluvatar said about that, right? Yeah, you can do it, but it's all going to work toward my good eventually. But that doesn't mean it doesn't suck. Yeah, in the here and now, right? And so it's kind of that's the world that human beings are having to deal with that Morgoth left behind for them.
Yeah,
and where it's not just those external forces of Sauron, and it's not just the latent evil in the hearts of men. It's he left behind a lot of the seeds, like in that passage you talked about.
Yeah, but that also connects. I'm going to jump to another quote that's a little further in. But I think this also explains, to a certain extent, the Númenórean desire when they start. They have the ban. They can't go to Aemon, and they can't sail further west. Right? They're not allowed to do that. And they're starting to covet immortality. They want that level there. This paragraph here says, "Now this yearning grew ever greater with the years, and the Númenóreans began to hunger for the undying city that they saw from afar, and the desire of everlasting life, to escape from death and the ending of delight, grew strong upon them, and ever as their power and glory grew greater, their unquiet increased. For though the Valar had rewarded the Dunedain with long life, they could not take from them the weariness of the world that comes at last." Like, just the idea of having to deal with everything and then die. I don't know. That feels very apt right now. Like,
right. Life's a biatch, and then you die.
Yeah. I highlighted that specifically for the reason I was like, yeah, that feels very apt right now. The weariness of having to deal with everything, because right now everything is a problem and everything is just like it's really a weight on there. But to look at it this way, in that sense of what the Númenóreans are dealing with, the exhaustion of, we live 500 years and we die. I would like it to have value in my life. The rest of you get to be immortal, and you can eventually see, when this gets cleared up, you get to live past that. You get to live into this, and we don't.
There's a great exchange. Well, first of all, I'll say it's amazing. Every time I read this chapter, it's amazing how fast we get there. Where, Tolkien takes one page to say this is an amazing society that has flowered into this, wonderful, technologically advanced and artistically advanced society, whatever. And then, 2 pages in, it's like, and now they're all a bunch of a-holes. Yeah. And then he spends 20 pages telling you why they're a bunch of a-holes and how they're a bunch of a-holes. And I should probably stop saying a-holes. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, there's a great exchange when the messengers from Valinor are coming. So these are the messengers from Manwë, and the rest of the Valar, they come, and this is a regular thing, right? They're always coming and exchanging words and ideas and who knows what else, goods and whatnot with the Númenóreans. And now they come, and the Númenóreans are like, "Hey, F you, buddy. I want to live forever. How, what makes you so special?" And they're kind of taken aback by this, and it's a conversation that's happening, one paragraph to the next, but it's you can almost see how it's taking months and months to, okay, we got to sail there, and then we'll come back with the message and send the message. But basically, it's it's this exchange where they're saying exactly what you're talking about. We want to enjoy this. Well, what's going on with you getting eternal life and we don't get eternal life? And the elves are kind of frustrated, saying like, don't you get it? Like, we've been telling you since the very beginning that this is a gift, and you accepted that it was a gift a long time ago. Death is a gift, that you're not confined to this world, that you're not stuck here, that you do get to leave. There's a great quote toward the end of the chapter about, this is not your home. We have always held that this is not your home, that, that Iluvatar, Eru, that's your home. You'll go back to the bosom of whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the Elvish catechism would say. But anyway, I think it's a really interesting exchange. And what the elves are telling them is, hey, you're losing your faith, and you need to be careful and get it back, lest ye perish spiritually and physically. And that faith, and this is, okay, look, this isn't Sunday school, and I'm not preaching the Silmarillion as scripture. But no, it's this idea of death as a gift, and them rejecting that slowly over time, where if you as a Númenórean believed at some point that Eru loved you and was giving you gifts, then why would you think that by loving this world, that this was the most lovable thing out there? Wouldn't you think that your all-loving God would have something better for you?
Right.
Waiting on the other side? Stop despairing and clinging to this thing that you have. Stop letting, this good life be the enemy of the perfect one potentially to come. I don't know. If I were an elf arguing faith with a Númenórean, that'd be my tactic, something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's just I think you can understand though the weight and the frustration and wanting change, wanting something different.
Yeah.
After that,
it is harder for them because they have regular. The proper word is intercourse, and you know what I mean. With the elves, they're constantly mingling with the elves, and so they actually get to see people who, like, oh yeah, you were my great grandfather's best friend. And now you're exactly the same, and he's long gone, and I will be too. Yeah. And you'll still be here. That sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah. I'd love that. I'd love to be on the other end of this deal. And I thought it was interesting. It's a very little minor detail though, but I thought it was interesting that the Númenóreans are very slow to grow. Like it just, is the gestation period for a Númenórean different, or is it just not on their mind at the time? Like, I was just curious about that, because, I mean, the race does get pretty heavily wiped out when Atlantis sinks, essentially. Right. But, I don't know.
On that note, let's change tacks a little bit.
Switch a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so you mentioned Atlantis.
Yes.
Right. Did you catch the Atlantis name in this chapter? Atalante?
Yeah.
So that's obviously a callback to Atlantis, right? So this is literally his Atlantis story.
Yeah.
And then there was another one. Did you catch?
Avalon?
Yeah. Yes. Avalone.
Avalone, yep.
Mm-hmm. And that is, do you remember where that city is?
I remember it's the last thing that people see before they go into the Undying Lands.
Right. So it is the city. It's the westernmost city on the Isle of Tol Eressëa, which is the island that is closest to Valinor. So when the elves are called from Middle Earth, the Noldor are told, yeah, you can come on back. We'll take you. And the gray elves are told this too. And so they're allowed to sail across the ocean. They go to Tol Eressëa, and that's where Avalon is. So there you go. There's your little callback to some legends just through the names in here.
Yeah, and the legend of Avalon is one that is used pretty heavily in the Arthurian legends and things like that too. So more of that mythology of England that he was aiming to build, I guess, connecting it to that.
How did the names go for you in this chapter? Because I felt like there were a couple of spots there were many spots where the story flowed and I was in the groove. And then you'd get to like the tale of kings, and this king married that sister, and or that cousin, and that wasn't allowed because she was the son of this guy, who was the son of that guy, and it was like a couple paragraphs. And this happened a couple of times where it's just like I felt assaulted.
I started doing crossword or not crossword word searches on the pages, just all the random things that are on there. Yeah, no, the naming convention. It like many things. I honestly I let it just kind of wash off me because if something stands out to me, I'll grab onto it, but otherwise I wasn't going to worry about it too much as we read through them. And then just ones that recurred, especially King
Ar-Pharazôn,
yeah. Because his story takes a little bit of time,
right?
Since he's kind of the one who's like, no, we're gonna go take this. We're gonna go over there because once we land on that ground, then we get to be immortal, right? And it's like that's not that's not how that works. It's not something about
we just spent
fruit.
a little time with him, yeah.
So,
okay. Well, before we leave vocab words, I've got a couple words of the day for you. Okay. Fane, F-A-N-E. I'll read you the sentence. Let's see. In the midst of the land was a mountain tall and steep, and it was named the Meneltarma, the pillar of heaven, and upon it was a high place that was hallowed to Eru Iluvatar. And it was open and unroofed, and no other temple or fane was there in the land of the Númenóreans. Fane, F-A-N-E.
Place of worship?
Yep, temple or shrine.
Oh.
I had never heard that in my life, even having read this chapter. My brain must have skipped right over it.
Yeah, I mean, I can pull it from I just kind of feel that from the context, but
yeah, exactly.
I never heard that before.
But there you go. And then there was another one that I thought was even more interesting because it's a word that we actually hear more now. Now I got to find it. There it is. Panoply. Okay, so this is what you're talking about.
We hear this often?
Yeah, like a panoply of riches or a panoply of this and that and the other. No? Really? Okay, all right. We're going to the almighty Googs.
Might legitimately be the first time I've heard that word outside of...
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What? Okay, so I that's interesting. Okay. Panoply. Now this is the word as we tend to use it now. Well, and by we, I mean everybody but you, apparently.
Apparently.
Right? A complete or impressive collection of things. The quote here on Google is, a deliciously inventive panoply of insults. Or a splendid display. All the panoply of Western religious liturgy. Whatever. I don't know. Okay. You've never heard panoply before.
I have never heard that. Maybe it's been mispronounced to me my whole life. There's something that I don't know that.
You need to read more.
Apparently. Panoply?
Person who's on a book club podcast.
Yeah. P-A-N-O-P-L-E?
P-L-Y.
P-L-Y?
Yeah.
Panoply.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway. Well, I'm really glad I picked this as a word of the day now. This is amazing.
Now I'll see it, and now I'll hear it and see it everywhere I go. It'll be a constant word that I'll throw it out randomly and use it.
I'm going to be shouting it randomly at you for the rest of the episode.
Got it.
Until it loses all meaning and all you can hear is the sounds. Panoply.
I'm gonna mispronounce it from here on out to panoply. Panoplo.
Panotuply.
Yeah.
No, okay. So the sentence is this is Ar-Pharazôn assaulting the Undying Lands.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. He went aboard his mighty ship, Alcarandos, Castle of the Sea, blah blah blah. Then he did on his panoply and his crown, and let raise his standard. And so I looked it up. I was like, that's an interesting place to use that word. Apparently, it is a historical term for a complete set of arms or suit of armor. A panoply. A complete suit of armor. So there you go.
Well, that makes sense.
I feel like, I to be honest, I learned that. I think a lot of our listeners will hear that and go, I've never heard it used in that way. And you get to say, I've never heard it used anyway. So this is the greatest word of the day I've ever done.
Yeah.
This really worked out.
I am happy to allow my ignorance to be the content of the podcast.
It's the content we're all here for, honestly. All right, Ryan. What else do we got? Let's move through the story. Let's keep trying to get through the story. We've talked about kind of the establishment of Númenor, and then stop me when you get to something where there's a point that you want to bring up. The Númenóreans are banned from sailing west. They
Yes.
can sail west only as far as they can still see Numenor.
Right.
Because if they go any further, then they're, getting too close. They're encroaching upon the Blessed Realm, right? So they always sail east. And for 2,000 years, they are going to Middle-earth, and, they set up camps there, they build their towers, and they're coming as teachers, as wise givers of lore and craft and all this. So the people of Middle-earth are really benefiting from the Numenorians.
Yeah.
They even go so far as to view them as gods when they come and then leave. They're like, wow, those were like, they might as well be aliens, right? Sufficiently advanced technology and all that stuff, right?
Well, and they're also, it helps that they're physically different from the rest of the men in Middle-earth.
Right, they're taller.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're all, they look like they are from Central Casting, male models from Central Casting. Okay, so anyway, that's how it goes. And then eventually the pride cycle kicks in. Anybody who's been to Sunday school has heard of the pride cycle, and many who haven't probably. The pride cycle kicks in. They begin to get so powerful that they covet immortality, like you're talking about. And that covetousness creates a change in the Numenorians. And they don't dare yet break the ban and try to sail west, but they will assert their adolescent independence in whatever way they can, and they take it out on Middle-earth, basically. So now they're going to Middle-earth, and they're like, hey, look, we've given, and we've given, and we've given, and now we're taking. So they come, they're slavers, they're taxers, as though that's quite the same thing. But anyway, but yeah, now they are making war on the people of Middle-earth and taking their stuff and taking them as slaves and all that stuff. It's getting pretty bad. Eventually there's a split in the Numenorians. We've got the faithful, and then we've got the people who are descending into evil.
Right. At this point, we are, correct me if I'm wrong here. At this point, though, we are under, Sauron has, no, we haven't gotten there yet. That's right. Okay.
So yeah, there is a character who comes up. The reason I bring up the split is because there's a character who comes up. His name is Tar-Palantir.
Yes.
And he's a son that ascends to the throne, and his mother has secretly been teaching him the righteous ways of the Jedi.
Yes.
So she's a good person. She gets married kind of against her will to this evil king, gives birth to a son, and he eventually ascends to the throne, and he tries to repair some of the damage, but the society is too far gone. He can't single-handedly bring them all, back from the brink of wickedness.
Right.
That guy, that was Tar-Palantir, and that should sound familiar, right? It's like far seer or something, or true seer, or something like that. And so, yes, the Palantiri, we know about the seeing stones that might come into play later, but not now. Anyway, but he eventually dies, and the throne goes to the next king, who is awful. And I believe somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. You can read this story 20 times and you still need to read it, one more to remember all the order of things. But I think it's Tar-Palantir's grandson. So the next king is awful, and then the next king after that is Ar-Pharazôn, who takes up a good 10 pages of this 25-page chapter. So he's the one that is eventually going to set sail. He gathers up all of his armies and assaults the Blessed Realm. But before that, what he does is he hears about Sauron in Middle-earth declaring himself Lord of Men, or like King of Men, something like that. Yeah. And of course, the Numenorian king can't have that.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I kind of sympathize with a little bit.
Okay.
Look, I'm not saying this is a righteous desire or something, but if I'm in their position, hey, every time we sail to Middle-earth, we are, we used to be worshipped as gods. Now we're feared as gods. We are the most powerful. This is probably the most powerful single kingdom that the earth has ever seen. And I include all the elves of the first age that we talked about already, right? This is probably the most powerful force the world has ever seen. And Sauron has the gall to say, I'm the king of all men.
Mm-hmm.
Well, buddy, you're in for a world of hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ar-Pharazôn is the one who sets sail to Middle-earth. He lands in Umbar. And for those of you who have played Lord of the Rings Risk, you know what that is, right? Do you remember that one? It's in like the south. It's one of the coastal fortresses.
I'll have to pull it out when I get home because I'm pretty sure I have that still sitting in the closet.
Yeah. Anyway, so they land at Umbar. They march for a week northward toward Sauron's fortress at Barad-dûr. Yes, it's already there. And Sauron sees the hosts of Numenor. And, you know, he was getting ready to make war. He's like, I'm going to defend my claim to be Lord of all men. And he sees the Numenorians. And he's like, F that.
Nope. I'm
out. He goes to their camp and throws himself at the mercy of the Numenorians and pretends that he's penitent. And, oh, gosh, I had no idea how powerful you were, oh king. Ooh,
yeah.
Your armor is so shiny.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Sorry, you look like you're going to say something.
No, I just please don't take me. Please don't. I have a Disney reference, but it's not what I'm going to go for. So,
well, what is it?
Oh, please don't throw me in that briar patch. Splash Mountain.
Oh, is this Song of the South?
Song of the South story.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ryan will pull a Disney reference out of anywhere.
Yep.
Including Song of the South. You heard it here first, folks.
Yes. That's right. I have tied the Silmarillion into Song of the South. My proudest moment. Here we go.
Oh boy. Oh, we're still gonna get it.
Yeah.
We're still gonna get it for that.
Yeah. It's most of the time it's me. I get it. It's fine.
That's right. I still love that you're the one who got called out for being, was it homophobic on our iTunes
one of the reviews. Yep.
Said Ryan was homophobic. Which still gets me every time. That's hilarious. Anyway, where were we?
Sauron throwing himself falsely penitently.
That's right.
At the feet of the Numenorians.
Right. So this is kind of like, it's if the Numenorians were setting fire to their civilization before, then Sauron is the leaky water balloon that they full of gasoline that they take with them back to their island. Right.
Yep.
And you're just waiting for that moment when it's going to pop. And it does.
It does, but
terrifyingly and kind of gloriously, narratively speaking.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, for it to go down, for everything to fall apart though, ultimately takes an act of the gods, like literally sinking the island.
Right.
Like there's something to be said for them being so powerful and getting so big that you actually have to get to the point where the gods have to intervene and be like, nope, can't do this.
Not just the gods. Like
God.
And this is why I was saying earlier, this is probably the most powerful force the world has ever seen, because when Morgoth finally, it looks like he's going to win in Middle-earth, and Erendil takes his ship over and is like, hey, can you help us out? Mm-hmm. And they send the Vanyar and lay waste to Morgoth, just crush him.
Yeah.
Like it ain't no thing, right? That was at the end of the first age. Now we're in the second age, and we're fast forwarding a little bit. Sauron has been whispering in the ears of the Numenorians. Now they're worshiping Melkor, building temples for him, human sacrifices, all the works, right? And now they're literally assaulting the Blessed Realm. Send all their ships out, a fleet that's surrounding Tol Eressëa, the island we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. And finally, the king steps foot on the Blessed Realm with a bunch of, his force. And the Valar take a look at that and go, God?
Yeah.
You there? Can you help us out?
We need something here. We need a moment here, if you wouldn't mind.
So I guess just juxtapose that against what happened with Morgoth, one of the Valar, and his hosts, and they're just like, yeah, okay, fine, yeah, we'll take care of it, and they stomp him like a bug. And the Numenorians, they're like, yeah, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole, right?
Please send rocks.
So what happens is it's actually I think it's an interesting passage, and one that we could probably dig into at a later date. I feel like there's probably too much there for this discussion. But when Manwë and the rest of the Valar relinquish dominion over the earth and give it back to Eru and say, like, this is too much for us. This is we can't handle this. It's in your hands. What are you going to do? And then the most remarkable thing happens when, we've talked about the ocean swallows up the ships. The king's hosts that are already on the shores of Valinor get covered up. Essentially, he shoves mountains over on top of them and covers them up. And the island of Numenor sinks into the sea entirely. Just gone. Wiped off the face of the earth. And in that, or after that, or I should say, in the aftermath of that, sailors, they go in search of, is there any remnant of Numenor left? Maybe the tallest peak is still sticking out of the water. Maybe we can find something. They never find it. They search so long and so far that eventually they go west far enough to find new lands and new oceans that weren't there before. And they discover, to their surprise, the world is now round.
Yep.
Which I've talked a lot about the story of when I was 17 and read this for the first time and didn't understand anything, had to go back to page 1. That was one moment where my mind just exploded. Even on the first time through, I got what had happened.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, the world was flat this whole time.
Yeah. And then I think he says he takes Aemon and Amon and separates it. And I was like moon? Like you can't get to it now.
Right.
It's completely separated from it. So he's like, oh, we'll wrap this up. We'll take this. We'll move it over here and separate out of the way. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
That's one of my favorite bits of lore, just from just from a standpoint of imagination and the images and feelings that it evokes. Because I don't know about a moon, but it's almost like an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
Right? It's still there. It's still connected to the world, but it's separated somehow. So, okay, so now we can think of it like an alternate dimension, maybe. But the way that it's described is that there are still straight paths. Okay, so at the end of this chapter, it mentions the elves that sail into the west and actually go to Valinor, or at least Tol Eressëa, and how they must somewhere find the capital S straight paths. And what that means is that the whole earth is curved, but there is, in fact, a straight path that you can sail into this, alternate dimension, if we want to put it that way. And only the elves are allowed to find it and sail it.
They find the crease. The crease where...
Oh boy, are we back on that now?
Just trying to bring it full circle, I guess. It always comes back to the crease. So
wow. No, anyway, I that was one of the very few concepts from the book that I grasped right away, and have always loved that image of, like, you picture that boat at the end of Return of the King in the movie version, or in your mind if you're reading the book, whatever. Frodo and co are sailing off into the west, and I just love this idea that at some point they find the straight path, and the world kind of curves and drops away underneath them, and they keep sailing until they get to Valinor. Like, that's cool stuff.
That is cool.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, what else you got? I've been blustering for a while now.
I know.
You have any? You said you had some notes you wanted to go over. Did we?
I think we've jumped further ahead than most of my notes have. Let me see.
That's right. I think we kind of covered the actual story at this point, right? So the only thing I think, the only thing story-wise, recap-wise, that we might want to dive into more is Sauron's influence over the king and all that, but we can come back to that. So what else you got?
Yeah. Can we talk about, just for connection purposes, because we have the three brothers. We have Isildur.
Isildur and Anarion are brothers. Their father is Elendil.
And Elrond is... No. Sorry, I'm
their cousin. Who are you thinking of? Are you thinking of his father? You're thinking of
I just remember there's a trio of people in there, and they
the guy who sailed off and tried to pull an Erendil.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. His name, it starts with an A, Amandil.
Ah, got it.
Is that, yeah, that's who you're thinking of, I think. Okay, what about him?
It was a portion that I didn't remember from the first time through.
Mm-hmm.
Going through a lot of this, I was like, I'm like, oh, okay, I vaguely remember this. I didn't remember these three and their pieces, and then this one trying to take off that. I don't know how much their story it shifts the main story or not, but I don't know. It was a portion that just stood out to me this time. It's like,
yeah.
These three. Yeah.
So Amandil, think of him as the grandfather in this portion. So he's the patron of the family, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
and he's one of the faithful. So he's very troubled by what's going on with the kings, and they're turning away from the Valar and all that stuff. And so he and his son Elendil, and I'm sure there are other members of the family as well. They and the rest of the faithful are starting to separate themselves from the rest of the Númenóreans. They're living on a different part of the island, and secretly still dealing with the elves and all that stuff. And then so we have Amandil and Elendil.
I feel like the name Elendil is more one that I feel like jumped out to me more also from...
Right. So, yeah, we're getting there.
Connect that dot for
me. The dot is this. So Amandil, the grandfather, he's so troubled, and he sees what's coming. He actually hears about Ar-Pharazôn's plans to assault the Blessed Realm. And he's so troubled by this that he decides, I'm going to sail into the west, just like Erendil did, and sue for peace, or help at least. That I'm going to go to the Valar and see what they can do for us. And he even acknowledges it probably won't work, but I'm going to do what I can. And so he and three of his household staff, for lack of a better term, hop on a ship and they sail off to try to do just that. And nobody ever heard from them again. Mm-hmm. And the text says something like, that wasn't going to work a second time. That was a one-time deal with Erendil.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's him. Now we have Elendil. He's the one who's left. Now he's kind of the leader of the family, the leader of the faithful. And he has two sons, Isildur and Anarion. So the dot you're trying to connect is that Elendil, eventually he and his sons do escape what's going on, and they set sail toward Middle-earth. When Ar-Pharazôn and the rest of Númenor sails off to the Blessed Realm, Elendil and his sons and the rest of the faithful, they take 7 ships and they're booking it toward Middle-earth.
Mm-hmm. And
there's a suggestion that possibly Amandil's mission was a partial success, because when the ish hits the fan and Eru finally destroys the whole fleet, sinks Númenor, covers up all the people with the mountains, whatever, that those 7 ships probably should have been destroyed alongside everything else, because they were in the ocean as well, even if they were kind of racing away from what was going on. But with all of the tumult that was going on, the waves kind of picked them up and pushed them toward Middle-earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible that Amandil's prayer was granted, that they did take a look at those who were faithful and helped him out. So anyway, now Elendil and his 2 sons arrive on Middle-earth, and that's where we get the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. Okay, so if I'm getting this right, somebody will correct me. I'm going off memory here. Isildur and Anarion rule in the south. They rule Gondor, and Elendil rules Arnor in the north. And he's the one who, like in the prologue to the Fellowship of the Ring, Isildur
has the ring,
took up his father's sword. Yeah, right. That was Elendil. And when Aragorn is fighting anybody, his war cry is Elendil. Yeah. You made fun of that in one of our very first episodes. Elendil. I can still hear you shouting that into my headphones, actually. So
got it. Yeah. Okay. So that's I just needed that dot connected, because I knew it was. I knew I had a pretty good sense that this Isildur was the one that connects into the Lord of the Rings prologue area.
Yes.
That, but Elendil, I don't know. I hadn't connected that. So that connects that piece for me.
So there you go. Yeah. So when Aragorn unites the kingdoms, that's what we're talking about. Is like these ancient kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. He now he's the heir of Elendil and takes up the kingship of both of them, which kind of seems like a dick move now that I think about it. It's like, hey, there are two kingdoms. Hey, you think you get both of them? Well, I guess he does.
Yeah, I mean, the rightful heir to them with how the Númenóreans were leading the whole time.
Okay. Ryan, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Let's see. On that note of Amandil sailing off into the west to try to get the help from the Valar, right? Let's see. He took with him 3 servants dear to his heart, and never again were they heard of by word or sign in this world, nor is there any tale or guess of their fate. Men could not a second time be saved by any such embassy, and for the treason of Númenor there was no easy absolving. Now, here's my question. Is this fundamentally different than what happened with Elendil? Because, okay, so cast your mind back to the Quenta Silmarillion, the war for the Silmarils with the Noldor, the betrayers of, the Oath Keepers, but betrayers of their kin. And, their war on Morgoth, and the Valar helped them out. Well, it says here, it's not going to happen a second time. For the treason of Númenor, there was no easy absolving. Are the Númenóreans, and is this situation fundamentally different than what the Noldor did and what they went through?
Fundamentally different?
Or, why wouldn't it work this time? Why wouldn't the Valar help them out?
That is... I mean, it could have...
It's tough. It's really tough.
Because the only thing that comes to mind initially is that the Noldor are of the firstborn.
Okay. Yep.
And the Númenóreans are not. They're just the closest to, that mankind has been allowed to be brought to them. And so, in that very simple sense, fundamentally, it doesn't work because you are not part of the group that has that connection to the Valar. But, I mean, yeah, I'm just saying that they're racist is what I'm saying.
The Valar are racist. You heard it here first. Again, wow, Ryan's full of nuggets today.
Yeah. But the only other thing that comes to mind as I'm thinking about this is I can see some frustration and anger in the sense that the Númenóreans had been gifted so much that others had not in terms of the race of men that... The feeling of anger and frustration that you're turning on us as treasonous because we have been nothing but good to you,
right,
and better than we've been to everybody else, makes that make more sense.
Yeah.
Than something where it's the Noldor.
Yeah.
set.
No, I think that's totally fair. My thought when I got to that, because I hadn't really noticed that before and highlighted it this time and thought about it a little bit. The Noldor think of it like wayward children, right? They're rebelling against their parents, so to speak. And they're, no, I'm not going to clean my room. I'm going to Middle Earth to make war on Morgoth instead.
Yeah.
I'll do what I want, right? So they're headstrong, they're wayward, they're prideful, and they go off to Middle Earth and prosecute this war. But at no point do they do what the Númenóreans did. The Númenóreans, like you said, were given many wondrous gifts by the Valar, and what did they do with that? They didn't just say, "Hey, we're going to take our toys and go play over here and not do what you want us to do." They actively turn against the Valar and work against them, and they reject Eru and begin praying to Melkor and building temples to him and making human sacrifices to him. That kind of turn, that's something that the Noldor never even got close to.
Yeah.
Right? They had their differences with the Valar, but they never... does that make sense? They never actually did a 180. They just went on a different path, a tangential path.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it was a fool's hope, maybe, that Amandiel said, hey, maybe they'll do the same for us. Well, the Noldor didn't do anything like this.
Yeah. This is a very, very, very bitter ex versus
there you go.
A relationship that just didn't turn out well.
Yeah, it's a bit like if you're King Arthur, your kid could just leave and he could reject your way of life, or he could be Mordred and try to kill you.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, I'm sorry, Mordred, I'm gonna have to kill you first. Right. So, all right. Ryan, where else do we want to go with this in our last couple minutes? Is there anything else we want to bring up? There's this chapter is so freaking dense. We could spend
there's
a lot of time on it. But do you have anything else?
Nothing that comes to mind immediately.
All right. The Eagles are coming again. Did you catch that?
No.
There's a great illustration. People should go check it out. I'll show it to you after we're done here because my illustrated copy is somewhere behind me. But in the Ted Naismith illustrated editions of the Silmarillion, there's a great illustration of the Eagles of Manwë. So there's this description when the Númenóreans are setting sail, or they're getting ready, they're threatening to make war on Aman, and Manwë essentially sends them a message via these clouds shaped like eagles. Or there's this one great cloud, and its wings stretch from north to south, and it looks like an eagle that's coming. It's got red lightning under its wings, and it's totally badass, right? Yeah. And then later on, as they're getting ready to actually set sail, out of the west there would come at times a great cloud in the evening. Blah 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 blah. Oh no, sorry, that's the first instance. The second instance is basically you're getting ready to set sail, and now there's 1,000 of these clouds all coming right at you. Oh, and it's dope. Anyway, so people should go check it out. I think it's a great illustration from Ted Naismith, this cloud shaped, with a beak and all this stuff. And it's really cool. Some really good imagery. So
cool. Oh, I missed that.
All right, Ryan, I think we'll probably have to call it there then. If anybody has topics from this chapter that they do want us to address separately, let me know.
Always do add a little addendum to the episode later
we do a Patreon exclusive, maybe something like that.
What content for our patrons?
I know. It's I don't want to talk about it. I threw it out there, but now I regret it immediately.
I made work for myself.
No, please go to Discord. You can find the link at thelegendarium.com, and you can shout your suggestions at us. I was kidding earlier. I do like to hear all the suggestions, even on the general channel. We'd love to hear what else you guys want us to talk about. So go to the episode discussion page on Discord and let us know. So with that in mind, Ryan, enjoy your time off until the next Silmarillion episode.
Yeah, what do we have? We only have one
more. One more.
What's the last thing we've got?
It's of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. This is what I'll give you a little preview of what's coming up. It's going to tell the story of the forging of the rings, the wars that surrounded that, and then it will tell the entirety of the Third Age, which lasts 3,000 years, a little over 3,000 years. So when Sauron is defeated by Isildur, right, cuts the ring off his hand, that ends the Second Age, technically. 3,019 years later, Frodo throws the ring in the fire. Okay, so that's how long the Third Age is. And the story of the War of the Ring, so that's the Lord of the Rings, is told in about 3 or 4 paragraphs, if that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which feeds into what we were talking about today with there's a lot that you could sketch out from this stuff. So that's what we have to look forward to, is another kind of similar type of chapter wrapping up the whole Third Age.
Got it.
In 19 pages.
Wow.
So look forward to it. I will, and I'm sure everybody else will as well. We've got one more to go, and I will see you then.